The Walking Dead Rewrite, Season 8, Episode 14, Half Moon. Now, this episode would begin and you would see lights shining in a grand stadium. As we would see Beta, or as we now know him as in the past, Half Moon. As we see him performing a show for a huge crowd of people. As we see him on stage, everything is going very, very well for him. As you see the crowd cheering his name, and then all of a sudden, Beta tells them to stop the music. As he says, whoa, 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 someone down there needs help. May want to give him some help down there. As we see, we have some medics. As we see, they stop the show. It looks like someone's down, just like at a normal concert, everything is normal. But then, as they go to see if this person is all right, they lift them up off of the floor. As we then see, they turn into a walker. Beta looks freaked out as this person starts biting a few people. As the crowd starts to split up, as we see blood everywhere, and as Beta and his crew have no choice but to flee from the stage via security, as we see Beta and the rest of his band have to run as the arena turns into a bloodbath. As we see Beta is being taken away out of the stadium and as far away from this as possible, we hear police sirens going up, we see an ambulance coming up, we see everything is just in disarray as he then takes a good look at the city in front of him as he sees there is a bad outbreak. There are people running everywhere. As we see, this is day one of the outbreak. Now, as we see Beta, he is whisked away with his band. As Beta is running with his band to get to his vehicle, but then, as Beta is of course let in first because he's the star, right? He gets let in first, but then the driver sees that Beta is inside of the vehicle and he then takes off, but then Beta tries to hold on to one of his bandmates as they accidentally drive off and they do not save their bandmates in time. As Beta sees his bandmates outside of the car locked out, as he watches them get devoured in front of him and he can't do anything to save them because he'll die too. As the driver drives away and Beta looks horrified to see all of his bandmates get ripped apart outside of the vehicle. As Beta is just sitting in the back of the vehicle, as we hear a radio broadcast announcing a horrible outbreak, as we see the world is going mad. Now, after the intro, we would then see Dwight as he is bringing Sherry through the woods. As we can see, she's in a lot of pain. As he's carrying her through the woods, we then see he finds his old house. As he brings her in and lays her down on the couch, as he says, "All right, come on, honey. You've been a fighter since the day I met you. Don't give up on me now." As he would then look worried for his wife, as he then steps away for a minute and walks down his hallway, but then he would then start ripping the floorboards out as we would wonder what he's doing. And then, as we then reveal, there is guns, food, medical equipment, and a bunch of other things in there. And Dwight would take it out and use some of the medical equipment to save his wife. As you would see, Dwight would help her out, patch her up, and you would see that, Sherry's still kind of out of it. He's trying to help her as best she can. And he would say, like, "This is going to sting a little bit, honey. Just hang on," stuff like that. And obviously she would scream out. It would be a really rough time, but Dwight would save her life. And you would kind of wonder, like, okay, where did these guns come from? Where did this supplies come from? Where did all this stuff come from? Like, why has this just been under his house? And as we kind of wonder why this has been happening, we would then transition to the next day. As we see the sun shining through the house, as we see Sherry as she's slowly waking up, we see Dwight did not leave her side overnight as he stood there on the other side of the couch and guarded the place while she rested. As she wakes up and she would say, "Dwight?" as Dwight would basically kind of look at her and say like, hey, how you feeling? And she says, still hurts, but I think I'll be all right. And we would reveal in this that, yes, Sherry will survive, but, it was kind of a difficult process. And Sherry would then notice that she's been patched up, and she would ask him, she would say, where'd you get all this from? And Dwight would just kind of look at her and says, it doesn't matter. And she says, what do you mean it doesn't matter? He's like, it doesn't matter. All right, you're safe. That's all that matters. And Dwight would start walking out, and Sherry would say, Dwight, I need you to answer me. Why is all this supplies here? What are you hiding? And Dwight would look at her, and he would say, all right. And he would kind of get serious with her, and he would say, back in the day, when you and I decided to go back, after a few weeks of me being back, after that asshole burned my face, I always thought maybe one day we'd change our mind. So I stole supplies from the back of a truck that we took from the hilltop back in the day. I took some of their guns, their remaining guns, snuck a few away, while the saviors took the rest. I snuck some food away, took some supplies from the doctor when he wasn't looking, and I buried it all under here. And Sherry would ask, why? Why would you do that? And Dwight would say, because I knew eventually we would try to get away. Now, we didn't get the chance, but I knew eventually that thought would cross our minds. And it always crossed my mind, even though I know I said I wasn't thinking about doing it. I did have our best interest in mind, and I knew what that place was doing to us both, and I didn't want us to be there anymore. So by the off chance that you came to me and asked me to run away, we would have had a head start here. We would have had some guns to defend ourselves. We would have had food. We would have had medical supplies. We would have had everything. We would have had a way to start over. And Sherry would just look at him and say, I don't know what to say. Dwight would then pull something from the supplies and says, oh, and he would take beer and pretzels out and says, I got our favorite. Sherry would then smile and says, I love you. And she would kiss him and says, but I think we conquered our demons, and I think that place is exactly the way it's supposed to be. Dwight would then look at her and say, all right, we'll head back soon. We got to update our people on what's going on, especially on the hilltop. But as we now see, Sherry is going to be okay, and we have this wonderful moment between these two that really solidifies just how far they've come and how they really just don't need to run anymore because things are going to work out. And speaking of things working out, as we then transition to Rick putting Alpha's head on a spike as Rick gets full revenge on what happened, and as he gets revenge for all of the people that we lost at the Pikes. As he puts Alpha's head there, as we see Negan stands there and says, all right, so our deal, let's start spreading the news. And Rick would say, oh, is that what we're gonna do? And Negan would say, we agreed on terms, Rick. We agreed on everything. I thought that would make us even. Rick would say, no, it doesn't. It doesn't make us even. You really want even? Even would be me standing here killing you right now, putting your head up on that pike right next to her. You liked it. You know you did. You were respected again. You enjoyed being that man that she could rely on for anything. I saw it. I knew what you were doing. I knew you enjoyed it. The only thing this does is spare you your life. Now, you saved my life back at Alexandria, and that's the only reason. That is the only reason why we are standing here right now making this deal. Will the people of Alexandria respect you for what you did? I don't know. If they do, so be it. If they don't, I don't give a shit. As we would then transition to a flashback, as we would then see Rick walk into Negan's cell, as Rick would then stand there, and Negan would say, so what do I owe the pleasure, Grimes? As Rick would say, why did you save me? Negan would say, well, I thought there were enough heads going up on pikes around here. Didn't need to see another one. Rick would say, all right, but why would you do something like that? Why would you put your own life on the line for someone like me, someone that's locked you up for all these years, and for a place like this that succeeded, meanwhile you wanted to burn it down? And Negan would say, well, maybe because I made some poor decisions. Doesn't mean you didn't either, Rick. I think you and I both know that both of us made decisions that we would rather change. But I know what's at stake here. I know what's coming, and I know I'm the first man to go if shit goes down. And Rick would say, you're right. You want forgiveness? And Negan would say, I done what I done. I ain't getting on my knees about it. And Rick would say, well, the way I see it, by the time that sun comes up, this community's gonna decide whether to kill you or forgive you. And truthfully, it's looking pretty tied. So there's only one way to break that tie. And there's only one way of making our community thrive. And I think I may have just found a way to where both of those things can happen. In a way. Negan would then look at Rick, and Rick would then say, These people are scared, more scared than I've ever seen them before, and they're ready to string you up when you've done nothing wrong. So I gotta ask, so if you want forgiveness so damn much, there's one thing that you need to do to earn your place here. Negan would then look at him and he would say, oh, what do I get? T-bone beer, maybe a scoot of rocky road, matters to you what I want? And Rick would say, maybe you don't have to die, Negan. I need this done, and I think you and I both know what I'm asking you for. And that will help all the women and children everywhere. And frankly, I don't want to see any more heads go up on that pike. But there is one more that I think deserves to be up there. And he would look at Negan, and Negan would say, well, Grimes, I'm honored. What if I don't do it? Rick says, well, then you die. Frankly, I don't give a shit. But if you do it, and you manage to get away, I will let you roam free, far away from here. And I will not kill you. That is my payback. Negan would say, not killing me? Rick would say, it's the best offer I got for you. Negan would look tempted, and Rick would say, so, we have a deal? Negan would then look puzzled, and he would say, I have your word? And Rick would say, if you do it fast. We would cut back to the current day, as Rick would say, what took you so damn long, huh? And why isn't Beta's head here as well, too? Negan would say, well, I don't know, I just wanted to get out of there with my head still attached. Shit like that takes time. Rick would say, alright, fair enough, alright? I don't know what you did, I don't know how you did what you did, but you did it. I'll take you back. Even though I know that you were considering staying with those people. You had to been. You're wearing the mask, blending in, smiling as you did what you did. I saw what you were doing. Don't think that you doing this earns my forgiveness. It just spares you time. And like I said, you're free now, Negan. You can go wherever the hell you want. Or you can come with me. We're gonna end this shit once and for all. That's up to you. Negan would say, oh, I'm here until that Beta asshole is dead. Rick would say, fair enough. All right, let's get going. And I would show this because Rick wouldn't be nice to Negan. Obviously, that would not happen. But here's the thing. He wouldn't be like Carol and be a stupid idiot and just run away and leave Negan on his own. Rick would go with Negan and, tell his group what Negan did. That is 100% what Rick would do. But here's the thing. Is instead of Carol leaving and having this big filler plot, Negan and Rick would just get to it. You'd get that scene, you'd get the knowledge on what Rick did, you'd see why Rick did it, you'd understand, and it's actually a big moment for Rick's character because it's actually the first time that Rick has done something without informing his own group. And obviously, seeing something like that is very different from Rick, but we can see that he had an end result, and that end result paid off. So agree or disagree with Rick, I think it's a really, really interesting moment for his character and his leadership. And seeing him and Negan going through something like that and him kind of giving Negan that ultimatum, I think is going to be a really interesting moment moving forward for his character. And something that I wish, if Rick was still in The Walking Dead, would happen this way. Now, we then would check back in with our group as we see them staying in that house. Obviously, the hilltop would be demolished by this time. And you would have Eugene. He's checking up on Rosita, making sure she's all right. You'd have Glenn asking his son if he's okay, obviously. You would have some of the other ones kind of just, making sure everybody's all right and stuff. And you would have Eugene. And I wouldn't really change anything about this. I mean, he would literally tell the group that he's been in, radio communication with someone outside their orbit. And they would kind of be a little concerned at first, you know what I mean? And he would kind of explain, like, look, he struggled for a while, buried himself in work, and next thing you know, she became a friend. I wouldn't change any of that dialogue. That is perfect. And he would then kind of sit there and say, look, like, I gotta go. And he obviously would raise some questions for the group. The group would be concerned. And I think it'd be a big moment for Daryl. Daryl doesn't speak enough in the original show. I really would like to give him more screen time in this element. And he would say to Eugene, look, I have some of the same questions, but I trust his instincts. And you know what? I'm going to hear him out. I'm going. Anybody else? And Daryl would look at the group, and Rosita would say, well, I want to see this new place. I want to see what it's all about. And if these are good people, maybe we can use them as allies of some kind. So I'm coming. And, Eugene would say, Rosita, you don't have to. And she says, it's settled. It's done. And it'd be like, wow, okay, so we got Daryl, we got Rosita, we got Eugene. And then we'd see Magna, and we'd have Yumiko. And Yumiko would be like, look, and get out there, have an adventure. And she'd be like, I mean, you know, we could if you want to. I mean, it's better than being cooped up here. And you'd actually have a difference in this one. Magna and Yumiko would both decide in this moment that they're going. And I think that'd be great to pair these two up. Give Magna more screen time instead of what the original writers were doing, which is just making her a freaking NPC. I would bring Magna on the trip, and you would have Magna and Yumiko in this version that would go. So we have Daryl, we have Rosita, we have Eugene, and Magna and Yumiko that are going on this trip. Now, I think this would be a very nice, cool moment for these characters, and I think that'd be really cool to see. Now, finally, we then would see Carl, and he's walking through the woods. As he then discovers a cabin, as he then slowly walks in, as he then comes in there and notices that there is rope and there is a chair that's just sitting there, he would look really, really puzzled, but then he would then hear someone running through the woods, as Carl would then run after this person. But as Carl then runs through the woods and tackles this person to the ground, he would then see it's Lydia. Lydia would be in a panic and she would say, Negan, he knocked me out. Negan, I don't know what the hell happened. And Carl would say, hey, relax. And he'd say, you're fine, all right? I'm gonna take you back. Lydia says, no, Negan, we gotta stop him. And then she would then realize that something bad has happened. And Carl would say, all right, listen, I need you to relax, all right? And I think this would be realistic. I don't like how the show did it where it's just like, oh yeah, Lydia's just chill. She's just fine. No, in this version, she would be genuinely panicked. And it still shows that despite everything that happens, despite the horrible things that Alpha does, you know, a mother is a mother at the end of the day, and she would know that her mother's life is at risk, and that is what she would be panicked about. It's not because she wants to save her, it's just the scenario itself that's playing out in her head would have her panicked. And Carl would actually say to her, listen, have I let anything happen to you? And she would say no, and Carl would basically say, he's like, listen, all right? This is not going to be an easy thing. I understand. All right, Beta, he's going to come after us even worse now. And if Negan is doing what you think he's doing, then that's, you know, that's totally fine. There's no way of stopping that. And Carl would then say, he's like, and if Negan's not on our side, and if this is a ploy, and if he really did tie you up for worse intentions, I will fucking kill him. Whatever happens, he will keep her safe no matter what. Now, the next scene we would see is Beta as he walks up to Alpha's head on the pike, and he would, you know, just seem really, really angry. And I think this would be a perfect scene. I wouldn't change anything from this. They'd be like, yeah, she was with Negan. You're the Alpha now. And he'd be like, what did you say? She can hear you. Take off your mask. And he would obviously take off his mask, and he would say, what is she saying to you? As he then lets him get bit, and the other Whisper would fucking bolt. I mean, he would be the hell out of there right away, you know what I mean? And you would then see Beta, and he would then sit there, take the head off of the pike, and like coddle it like a friggin' baby or something. Like, yeah, no, I would easily keep that. That is definitely a perfect scene for Beta. And then you would then see Dwight and Sherry as they are leaving the house, as they are getting ready to head back to the sanctuary. But as they are walking out, then whispers would come out of the woods as they would surround them. And Dwight would look at Sherry and he would say, we gotta run. There's a gap through the woods. We need to go. Can you run? Sherry would say, yeah. As they would then start running through the woods, as they start running as fast as they can, as we see the Whispers are chasing after them. But then the Whispers would surround them in all ends of the woods as they would pull out their knives, as Dwight would stand there with his gun and he'd start shooting what he can, but then he'd be out of bullets. And then as the Whispers start surrounding them in the woods, as Dwight would say, I'm sorry, honey. As Dwight would take his knife and he would try his best to start killing as many of these Whispers as he can. But then, as they overcrowd them both, then out of nowhere, we would see a massive military squad come in and mow these Whispers down and save Dwight and Sherry's life. As we then see, Father Gabriel has come by to save the day. As he looks at Dwight and Sherry and he would say, you guys okay? Was wondering where you went last night. And Dwight would say, thank you, man. As he would shake Gabriel's hand and Gabriel would say, oh, got quite a grip. They would laugh as he would then ask if Sherry's okay. And Dwight would say, yeah, she's all right. I got to get her back to the sanctuary. And Gabriel would say, well, I was heading back there anyway. After what happened to the hilltop, we need extra defenses on the sanctuary at all times. Dwight would say, yeah, I think you're right. You're a lifesaver, man. Gabriel would look at him and he would say, just thank God. as they would then go to the sanctuary together to keep it defended. We would then see Beta as he is going through this old town, and I would keep this the same. You would have that Whisper that of course is bit on the face by the Walker version of Alpha. Beta would then kill him as he would then be listening to Alpha in this bag, and it would just be so messed up. He'd walk in, we'd see his old Half Moon supplies, an old record, old liquor, a guitar, and you would just see just old things from his past that really are haunting him. And you would see kind of a more human side of this maniac. And I wouldn't change any of that. I think that is a phenomenal thing that they did, and I think the show handled it in a very, very good way. Now, we would then see Daryl, Rosita, Eugene, Magna, and Yumiko as they are on the road. And you would actually get a bit of a callback to Season 6 in this one. They'd be making their way down as they come across train tracks. And you'd actually have Daryl to be like, yeah, like, let's go this way. And, you know, Rosita be like, maybe we could take the tracks. It wouldn't take us as long. And Daryl would just kind of look at her and say, I am never taking those damn things again. And he would kind of chuckle at this, and Rosita be like, nah, I hear you. And it would kind of be a reference to like, yeah, it doesn't matter what happens. Train tracks are just bad luck. And they'd finally come to that conclusion. Train tracks are just bad luck. Every time they go down them, nothing good ever happens. And I would kind of reference some old stuff there. And you would then see them, and I'd have the same conversation. They'd be talking about like chocolate bunnies and stuff. And he's like, no, we're not on this trip for chocolate bunnies. We're on the trip for future mankind. And he'd be like, although candy would be nice, you know? And you'd have Daryl to be like, all right, we cut through this way, you know, typical Daryl stuff, you know? And then we would then see our group, as they're making their way through, we'd see a big, big city up ahead. And you would see like, all right, like, damn, they're actually making their way through this. And you would then see Daryl, and he would say, all right, we need to stop somewhere for the night. Rest up, go the rest of the way tomorrow. And Eugene would say, affirmative. Now, in the middle of the night, you would see Rick and you would see Negan, and they'd be walking through trying to make their way back, as then you would then see Whispers surround them from all different directions. And I wouldn't change anything from this. You would have the Whispers that be like, Alpha's dead because of you. And Rick would just kind of look at this, and the Whisper would then say, we kneel to the new Alpha. And Negan would just see these Whispers kneel, as he would then look at Rick, and he'd be like, huh, and he would find this kind of amusing, and Rick would just roll his eyes. And obviously, just like the show, you'd kind of wonder, like, what is happening here? As you would have him, he'd be like, yeah, man, oh, wait a minute, though, I'm supposed to be the Alpha, right? The only reason I'm asking is because I'm a little bit confused. If I'm the Alpha, why is someone that's most definitely not the Alpha holding the badass shotgun? And the Whisper just be like, oh, I don't know, you know, and he'd give him the gun. And he'd be like, that is what I'm talking about. And he'd be like, oh man, I never had a kid of my own, but if I did, I would imagine this is just like holding your baby for the very first time, except it turns out my baby can kill people by spitting bullets at them. Rick, kneel for the Alpha, and especially these two being rivals last season, I think would be a big moment. It'd be like, oh no, here we go again, you know what I mean? It's like, man, nothing changed, you know? And he'd be like, man, it's starting to get real now, is it? And Rick, I think, would honestly say this. I do think that this line would be very much in Rick's character. He'd be like, you should probably shoot me. And Negan would say, hey, don't threaten me with a good time, Grimes. Boom, boom, shoots both of them. As we then see, he saves Rick's life, as Rick then looks at him and he would say, untie me, asshole. As Negan would laugh, and they would both help each other out. Now, we would then see Beta as he is bringing a Walker horde together by using his old music. Now, the only difference in this scene, and this is something I would include, is while he's hoarding his crowd together, and as he's looking down at this Walker army that he has, and he'd be smiling, we'd actually get a bit of a flash as he would remember life on stage, performing for his crowd, as you would see a parallel shot of Beta in the flashback on stage looking at his fans and smiling, as you see him in the current day looking down at the Walkers and smiling. I think showing a parallel shot like that would be a really, really cool layer to show you how far he's come and how messed up he is nowadays. Now, he'd be obviously standing there, he'd be kind of just, you know, obviously forming his Walker army and waiting for the right moment to just release them, obviously. And that would definitely be something that I would keep in this as well, too. Now we would then cut back and you would see it's the next day as we have our crew that are heading towards the city and on their way back. Now we would then see Rick and Negan sitting at a log as you would have them kind of, sharing a bottle of water and stuff. And it'd be like, man, when you people locked me up all that time staring outside that window, man, it sucked. And he'd be like, man, I'll admit to you, Rick, when I joined that place, you were right. I liked it. It was nice feeling like I mattered again, like I actually made a difference. And Rick would just be like, is that supposed to make me like you? And Negan would be like, no. And Rick would be like, good, because it ain't. As you would then see Negan say, well, what about my winning personality? Rick would just start walking away and he says, well, we got a lot to do. Let's get going. And you would see Rick and Negan, they're not on good terms, but they're on understanding terms. And I think for what Negan did for Rick and for the community, Rick would notice that, and he would treat Negan at least with somewhat respect. Maybe not 100%, but at least somewhat respect. And I think that would definitely be shown in this scene. Now, you would then see a scene where you have Daryl, Rosita, Magna, Yumiko, and Eugene, and they're going through the city, and they would discover something very interesting, as you would see some walkers that are acting like normal human beings, like a cop giving a walker a ticket, and, one's wearing fancy clothes. And in this version, and I think it would be very, very interesting, our characters would not laugh. It wouldn't be like Ezekiel, because none of these characters would actually do something like that. But you would have Daryl that'd be like, what the fuck is this? In a very Daryl fashion, be like, what the fuck is this? And he would kind of look at Rosita, and Rosita would just be like, the world drives people mad. And you'd have Eugene that'd be like, well, let's hope we never end up like this. Daryl would say, at the rate we're going, I'm not counting on it. As you would have them, they were walking through, and as they turn the corner and as they turn around, we would see a woman in a pink fluffy jacket as she would stand there and she would say, oh my God, hi, as they would all be like, what in the hell? Now we would then see Gabriel getting back with Dwight and Sherry and the rest of the army back to the sanctuary. As you would see, some of the people at the sanctuary would run up to Dwight and Sherry and they'd be like, oh my God, what the hell happened? And Gabriel would inform some of the people at the sanctuary that the hilltop is gone. And obviously they would all look very broken about this, and they'd be like, did everybody get out? And Gabriel would say, so many didn't make it. Also, we could survive. Which would be a line from Gabriel in the original series used in a different context. And we would then see, obviously, that they would take them in, they'd help them out, and Dwight and Sherry are back home, but now it's the question on what happens next. As we would then see Beta, and he'd be holding Alpha's head, as he would then do the same thing, kill, obviously, the head version of Alpha. He would, put her out of her misery and stuff. And as you would see Beta and he's walking up to this door, you'd wonder what exactly we're kind of lingering this scene on. As you would then see Beta and his army, as we then see he cut off the other half of his mask and used the other piece of Alpha's face as the back half of his mask. And you would see he is wearing half of Alpha's face and half of his original mask. As we see, he's assembled his army of walkers and he is marching on to kill our group. Later on, we see Gabriel as he is standing on a water tower outside of the sanctuary, as he is then looking out with his gun, as he points his gun down and he sees a massive horde of walkers is a few miles out from the sanctuary. As Gabriel sees this coming for the sanctuary, as he tries to radio in, but there's no signal. As Gabriel is standing on this water tower, as he looks and he sees Beta at the front of the pack, as Gabriel sees this, as he looks nervous and he says, may God have mercy on us all. May God have mercy on us all. May God, may the Lord have mercy on us all. As he would stand there ready to face what's about to come. So that was The Walking Dead, Season 8, Episode 14, Half Moon. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We did a few original scenes that had nothing to do with the original series, like that flashback at the beginning to see what Beta went through during the first day of the outbreak. We got to see a lot of things. We got to see a very different group going with Eugene on this run. We have Daryl, which is going to be a very different one. We have Rosita that's going with Eugene, kind of continuing that bond between the two of them, which, as you guys know, I am very much keeping that as a friend bond rather than a relationship bond. And we're seeing more development for Magna and Yumiko, and we're going to see a little bit more what they're up to. We'll have to see who this character is. Obviously, we may know her from the original series as Princess, but we'll have to see what this is in the rewrites version, of course. And we have Negan and Rick instead of Negan and Daryl like the original series, facing off against the Whispers, and Rick really does get proof from Negan in this one that Negan is on his side. And obviously, I mean, we've seen a lot of different things in this episode. We have our group kind of all splintered up. We have Carl that, of course, is helping Lydia out. We have the Horde that has been assembled by Beta. He is now wearing Alpha's mask. And on top of everything else, we have Gabriel on a very, very interesting location to end the episode on a water tower. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what comes of that. We have 2 episodes left this season. This season is coming to an end, y'all, and I'm very excited for y'all to see the last 2 episodes and obviously see how this whole Whispers thing goes down, because we'll have to see, you know, could this season end the Whisper storyline, or maybe we will continue into season 9. We will see. But thank you all for watching. I look forward to seeing y'all for the penultimate episode, and stay tuned for that, because coming up next is The Walking Dead Rewrites, Season 8, Episode 15, Call to Arms. Thanks for watching.
Born in the dark alleys, city of concrete. Dan's reviews blowing up, never taste defeat. Walking Dead dissected every plot twist beat. World gone mad, TV junkies hit a treat. Typing up scripts, marathon through the night. His opinions hit harder than a street fight scene. Every episode, brain sharper than a knife. He's the beacon of critique, shed a TV light.